First off, a bit of background information on our host. Lidia is a catalyst of transformation for ambitious women as they face overwork, lack of fulfillment in their relationships, and when their obligations complete with their true desires. Her past experiences include being a banking compliance expert by day and an inventor of pleasure products by night, and co-founding the Woman of Sex Tech, an innovative non-for-profit organization at the intersection of sex and technology. Lidia has been featured in the New York Times, Fast Company, Refinery 21, Forbes and Essence Magazine. And we are so grateful, Lidia, that you have taken the time to plan this incredible session for the collective, and we can't wait to learn from you today. So I will go ahead and hand it to you, and I will get the presentation all set up whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready.
Let me go ahead and get this all situated. Technology, please cooperate. Okay, does it look okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Perfect. Amazing.
All right, so thank you for being here. So let's get to it. Let's talk about pleasure and how it's your answer to burnout. So if you just go to the next slide. So just to tell you a bit about what a pleasure strategist is, it's a term that I coined, but it's basically like, you know, how ambitious female identifying individuals or women are often, you know, exhausted, lonely, and emotionally depleted. Well, what I do is I teach them how to make peace with their strength and obtain pleasure in every aspect of their life. So, and I do this in a non-goddessy, you know, straight shot with no ice kind of way. A friend actually described me that way. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to steal that. So that's what you can expect from me. So now I just want to go on to our journey. Basically, I'm going to start off with what my intention is. I'll go a little deeper into what burnout is, what it looks like in your life, what it could feel like, and how coping is not a good way to deal with burnout, and define and flesh out what pleasure is, as well as, you know, make the link between pleasure and burnout, share my special gift with you that you can take home with you, and answer any of your burning questions. I just realized that was kind of a pun. My bad. That was on purpose. So my intention, I have 3 intentions for today. And one is that you get grounded in what burnout looks and feels like. I know it's a term that's used a lot and it's been coined, but I really want to do a deep dive on what it looks like for you. Also learn how pleasure can transform burnout, and how coping won't do that. And you also receive some tangible tools that you can actually apply today. So the first thing that I want to congratulate you, acknowledge you for being here. Like, what's a conversation about pleasure without, you know, without Beyonce? So you've already, just by making the time either to be present right now or to listen to this recording, you've already taken a new step from away from your burnout. So your journey has to pleasure actually it's already begun. It may not feel like it, but it actually has. So let's talk about what burnout is. So let's give you a mini history on what the term burnout is. You can go to the next slide, Hannah.
I'm also going to try something really quick. Let me know.
Sure.
I'm trying to.
It's Mercury retrograde. It's like really Mercury retrograde.
Do you see the presentation now?
I see
my desktop.
I see your desktop.
Okay.
I see Canva open, yeah.
I'll just put it back.
Okay.
Sorry about
No worries. Okay, so burnout was coined by the American psychologist Herbert Freudenberger in the 1970s to describe professions that are basically at the intersection of extreme stress with high ideals. So to describe the experience of doctors, nurses, people who have like these, grandiose professions or have high ideals. I mean, what's the biggest ideal other than, saving your life? And the other thing I want to say about burnout is that it doesn't have to be just work related. So it's anywhere in life where you have a role pitted against high ideals. For many of us, that may be being a parent. In my case, being a caretaker, being a volunteer, being a pastor. In essence, what burnout is a prolonged experience of emotional and as well as physical depletion. So it's really those two things that kind of merge together, and it happens over a period of time that then you would experience burnout. And it's important to say that it happens in stages. You don't wake up, you didn't wake up, you're not gonna wake up today and be like, oh my God, I love my life, and tomorrow I'm burnt out. Generally, it does happen over a period of time as things change and things may come up. And the ultimate stage of burnout is depression. And it's also important to know if you feel like you may be depressed, or it's even a possibility, it's important to not try to deal with your burnout. Instead, really do seek the help of a professional. So now I just want to take a deeper dive into what burnout is. Now, these factors are listed in severity. So the least severe to the more severe. And the other thing, as I was saying, is that because burnout does happen over a period of time, it does happen in stages. I don't want to present to you the number of stages because there is healthy debate about the number of stages. And so I didn't want to, get all into a whole bunch of minutia about it, but just to go over some of the more common ones of what people talk about and what you may be experiencing is anxiety, fatigue, you may be forgetting things, having a hard time focusing, apathy. It's like, oh, whatever, life, it is what it is. Maybe you find yourself saying that. Anger, aggressive behavior, experiencing self-doubt, all the way to feeling empty inside and feeling a sense of resentfulness towards maybe, wherever the role is, resentment towards your boss, your investors, your family members. And how it may manifest physically is high blood pressure, headaches, grinding your teeth at night, a persistent tiredness that it's like it does not go away. Like you've taken the weekend off and you're drinking coffee and still you're tired. You might even gone away on a vacation and still you feel a sense of fatigue. That's a sense of like chronic physical fatigue. And also a big part of what a lot of women experience is hair loss. I had that personally myself, and I'll talk about my personal experience later. And so how it shows up in your life, right? You may now be experiencing like job dissatisfaction. Maybe you were so inspired at one point, and now you're like, I can't stand this. And it might even be something that you even created that you may be burnt out with. Lack of social interaction. You may start to pull away from friends, may stop to do some of the things that you used to do before you were experiencing all of this. You may also start to experience an uptick in coping activities. So you're retreating more, but then you're kind of escaping, perhaps even into substances like alcohol, drugs, caffeine is one, and all the way into the more dire one is like the desire to drop out of society, to to, what, I'm just out of here. I'm going to quit everything. I'm not going to tell where I am. I'm just going to go. When I've experienced burnout myself, I remember I used to say, I didn't realize I was burnout at the time, but now knowing what I know, I was burnt out. I would say, I'm going to an ashram. I'm out of here. 6 months. I'm gonna pray, eat, love, pray for 6 months, and that's really wanting to check out, and not deal with what the experiences is. So let me just share with you my personal story about burnout. So I've experienced, as I said, I'm sure I've experienced burnout a number of times in life and didn't realize that's what it was. I just thought, oh, it's just the job. It's just what it is. This is what it is to be X, age in New York and blah, blah, blah. But one place was when I graduated college. My first job out of school was as an analyst, supporting traders that trade futures and options, billions of dollars worth of billions of dollars of derivatives all day. And one could say that this population is probably the most high strung on the planet. And so I had all these deadlines. I had a UK deadline. I had a Beijing deadline. I had all these deadlines throughout the day. I experienced all these different neurological symptoms that no doctor could figure out. I also experienced hair loss, panic attacks. And finally, I went to a holistic doctor who said, listen, you can so your job is killing you, number one. Number two, you can either quit your job or learn how to deal with this. And I was like, I think I'll quit. And, it took me a while to do that. I did a whole plan and, took the year to save off and do a sabbatical. But that's, in hindsight, I didn't know at the time, but that was burnout. And how I also knew that I was burnt out is because afterwards, after I had left, I had found out that it took 2 full-time persons and a part-time person to replace me. I was my first job out of college. I was like naive. I didn't realize, how corporate America could work. And so now coming to my current experience in burnout is I am now the caretaker of my father who has cancer. And I'm doing this in another country. I was born and raised in the United States. I'm here in the Dominican Republic in a completely different system. I have spent days, nights in hospitals and this and that, just basically doing all the world of what a caretaker is. And I remember the exact moment when I realized I have a problem. My father was staying in a military hospital it's not well staffed and it's a mess. But at any rate, it was 2:00 in the morning. I was staying with him overnight and he was experiencing discomfort. And I was like, I had already reached out to the doctors and they're looking for someone. And they, everyone was like checked out or gone, couldn't find anybody. And he's like, oh, let me go find me someone. I'm not feeling well. And I was just in that moment, I was like, I'm tired. I have so much work to do that I have not done. I am cold. I just want to go to sleep. I can't deal with this right now. So I just got up and said, shut up. And I walked out of the room to go look for doctors. And when I had a moment to cool off, I was like, I think I got a problem. I think I've reached burnout. So if you can go on to the next 2 slides, talk about how the path really to burnout can happen. So one is societal expectations of like what it is to be a good mom, to be a founder who is fundraising, to be a great daughter. For me, it was what does it mean? Expectations perhaps from your family of origin. That in our family, mothers stay home, or in our family, the mother works, or whatever that may be. Community pressures. So the idea of like, whatever whatever communities you may be a member of. I know when I was had House of Plume, my product line, I was like under this pressure to like fundraise, to give VC capital, to do this or do that, because it was like what everybody else was doing. So that created a sense of like, I have to now go do something. what I call illusions of time. So the idea that, I'm just going to work really hard for 2 years because I just started this company and I just need to work really hard. It's okay. It's okay that everything else might be falling apart around me. This is what I got to do. Pressures also to keep up with a changing landscape, #pandemic, like everything has changed. And you may be feeling pressures to deliver more for less, or whatever that may be in your personal situation. And my personal favorite, which is perfectionism, because I am a recovering perfectionist, and you do all the things that in the end may not make a difference, but somehow you think that that's somehow gonna change a result. And also one that's actually not listed here is the expectation of, let's say, if you are a parent and now, how, you have to, in essence, parent differently because of the pandemic. Are you considering now homeschooling? How are you going to do that and have your business? And do we have to move to a bigger space? And these are the things that people have been dealing with for the past year, but perhaps you may be in the still of the thick of the things. So, but there's really one reason, why burnout is happening to any of us. And what I say is that burnout happens when your beliefs are so limiting, they choke your life. Burnout is a spiritual call to live differently, right? So what do I mean by that? What do I mean by limiting beliefs? So if you can go on to the next one. So limiting beliefs are, and this is also, along with burnout, is like another term where people just use, and it's like, like what does that really mean? So limiting beliefs are, in essence, just like they're the mantras, unexamined mantras of your life. It's just like what you do, like almost automatic. However, you do it automatically. However, it's not serving you. So with respect to burnout, it would be the places where you say, I got to do that. I have to do it. I got to, instead of I want to. How many times, in your everyday life, and you say, I got to do this, I got to pick up, I got to take the kid, I got to do this, I got to do that. And it's like, really? Do you really have to? Could someone else do that? That may be a place to look at. Where is it that your beliefs are actually causing what's going on? And my number one way of looking at limiting beliefs is that you are not your results. I know in our everyday, in our society, capitalism, in essence, makes us believe that you are what you produce. And not only in just terms of money, but what you produce in terms of relationships, what you produce in terms of like just your value in life. It's just like my value is what I produce. And it could really turn into a situation where you are burnt out. So, and you would think, like, if I just try harder, if I just do more, if I just stay up later, if I just do all the things, then somehow the result will change. And it's important to know that your worth, your value as a human being has absolutely nothing to do with the results that you produce. Just in preparing, for being present today, for example, my dad wanted to go to the hospital. It's like, I'm not feeling well. And I was like, we talked about this before, and it's like, you're not drinking water, like you're not doing the things. And I had to say to myself, I am worthy, and my father is not drinking water that he's been recommended to do. I'm not, it's not just I'm worthy despite of my father not feeling well, or despite of no, I'm worthy, and his cancer is his cancer. And if I don't tell myself that, I will go into a tailspin and will take it out on him, myself, and it will be just a mess. It will be burnout. So you can go ahead. So here's where I'm going to say something where what I'm going to say is going to be contradictory to what you might have even expected on this talk, because I did read what the questions were, and it's like, how can I hack it? How can I navigate burnout and all this, and how can I lessen it? I'm going to say that you actually want to embrace it. The burnout is a gift, and it's a gift because it's an opportunity for you to examine and rediscover what matters to you. It's an opportunity for you to examine and rediscover how you can do life differently, because that's really what burnout is telling you to do. It is kind of like a 5-alarm fire that is saying you must do things differently or you will crash. You must do things differently or you will lose all your hair. You must do everything differently or otherwise no one is going to continue to be your friend. So you don't want to lessen the symptoms of it with escapism or trying to feel less of it. You really, because otherwise you're just going to prolong it. And you could quit the job, you can do whatever that you think may end the burnout, but it'll just pop up somewhere else because you didn't get to the root cause. So burnout is really a gift that you are the only person that could really open it. So how do you now get to breakthrough? How do you turn burnout to breakthrough? And it's like, now that you burned it down, you burned your life down, things are a mess. I might be being facetious. It may not be that bad for you, but let's say it is. You burned it down. Okay, great. Make it worth it. Like if you were thinking of your life as, a house that caught on fire, and now you have insurance money, and now you could do what you want to do. What do you want to do? And I feel, or my belief is that pleasure is the key to really having what it is that you want. So now let's, define what pleasure is, right? So pleasure, let me just say this about pleasure. Pleasure is one of the most misunderstood and emotionally charged words in the English language. So many times I've had to explain to people like, oh, pleasure. Ooh. I'm like, no, I don't listen. I'm not going to talk about sex with you at this bar. I tell people, listen, I don't do the blow by blow. Don't, if people just really, pleasure, sex. And, we can point to, societal influences. You can also go to different interpretations of what pleasure is in the Bible. And, the fact that capitalism doesn't view pleasure as productive unless they could turn it into a vice. So if I can sell you alcohol, I can sell you something where you're going to be hooked on it, pleasure is good. But in essence, that's not pleasure, that's, addiction. And how I define pleasure is that it is the state of satisfaction and joy. That's it. That's all it is. It's not about, escaping your life and not having any responsibilities, but rather having pleasure and having satisfaction and joy inside of those responsibilities. So how can I actually take pleasure from taking care of my father? How can I actually take pleasure in the roles that I'm, that I've taken on in life? So, and it could involve the 5 senses. Like one of my favorite things is to eat a mango on the beach. You're using, it's like juicy and it's beach and blah, blah, blah. It could also be, an experience. So you've gotten results for your clients, or you've gotten, you met a goal that you're really proud of. That's also pleasurable and that's great. So what I'm talking about is having that present, that feeling of satisfaction and joy be present in all aspects of your life. So let's talk about how it's not coping. So I'm big on definitions because, as I said, in our society, we've taken terms like coping, pleasure, we've taken terms like even narcissism, and kind of dumbed it down. Everybody does a podcast and everybody thinks, what it is, blah, blah. So coping is defined as a way to deal with an attempt to overcome problems and difficulties. So, and if you look up the words associated with it, it means to strike, to fight, and to combat. In essence, when you're coping, you're working against something. So it's like you're pushing against something versus what pleasure is. What pleasure is going toward joy. It's about going towards what matters to you, what fulfills you. Rather, what coping is pushing discomfort down. Like, how could I escape what's happening? I know that I'll have to get to those emails, or I'll have to get to, that difficult conversation with a family member or whatever. But right now, I'm just going to escape in Netflix, for example. So it makes total sense, though, that if you're trying to fight burnout, or you're trying to navigate burnout, or you're trying to deal with burnout, that it would make total sense that you would go to coping and versus really dealing with the root issue. And in essence, that's getting to pleasure. So here is my pathway to obtaining sustainable pleasure in life. So I'm going to go through these in detail. So the first step is to take personal responsibility. And when I say personal responsibility, I do not mean blame. We are in a culture that says you do have to, you almost have to overwork yourself or exude that you're overworking yourself and to make it seem like you've actually caused some results. There's aspects of our culture that we cannot change. There's aspects of our family of origin that we cannot change. There's beliefs that we got from God only knows who and who said it and where that came from. Those are the things that are not in our control. However, what is in our control is our experience. And your experience is determined by what, in essence, you believe. So another way of looking at that is really examining, where you say, I have to do this, I got to do this, or if I don't do this, people are going to think this about me. If my child does not go and do all of the things, the camp, this, or that, then that means I'm not a good mom. You want to take responsibility for that. It didn't. So it's like a ball. Like somebody threw you the ball. Culture threw you the ball. Your family threw you the ball. Okay, are you going to let it hit you in the face, or are you going to catch it? And what you do now is that you look at, okay, what actually does empower me versus what I've been believing. And so the next step is to create mental space with forgiveness. And that starts with forgiving yourself and then forgiving others, right? And why I say that it creates mental spaces because when you're in burnout and when you're doing, you're doing it, and that's where the symptom of resentfulness will step up. It's like, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. For example, in my life, I was pretty resentful with my father because I was like, my father is an American citizen. And it's like, you chose to live here and you chose to the substandard medical care after me telling you numerous times and family members telling you numerous times that you should go to the United States and get yourself checked out every 6 months like every other expat does. Instead, you chose to stay here, and now we have, all of that. Now, that's what I believe. The reality is, I don't know if any of that would have made a difference. However, I had to forgive him for that and forgive myself for thinking that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to be with him or be present with him in a way that was welcoming or nice. It'd be like, oh, God, I got to get up. Oh, I got to do this. And it sucked. That was like really weighing me down. So take a look at where you haven't, where you may want to forgive others. Perhaps you have a business where someone is not, they're not doing their fair share, or you have a client that's just like not worth the money anymore. Those are areas where you want to take a look at, like, okay, how can I let go of how can I let go of any anger or resentment that I may have, and just forgive yourself for arriving at where you're at. okay, your life burned down. All right, cool. Like, what's next? It happens to a lot of people. It happens to people every day. Like, just let it go. I know that's easier said than done, but it starts really with the willingness. And here's what I would say about forgiveness is that with some things that are so sticky and so like it has so much energy and charge that a lot of people, I don't want to forgive. They just, I'm not going to do it. You want to start off with just being willing. If you say, I am willing to forgive, and you keep saying that, at some point you will arrive at forgiveness. So forgive yourself for not being able to forgive right away, because it's human. So now that you've created mental space with forgiveness, you also want to create physical space and time. So what I mean by that is you want to look at commitments, tasks, roles that you've taken on due to your limiting beliefs, or again, the limiting beliefs that other may have placed on you. So you want to reassess, want to renegotiate, or if it doesn't, either one of those things don't work, then just release it, right? Perhaps you've taken on too many unpaid advisory roles. And it sounded like a great thing at the time, and it looks good on your LinkedIn, but now it's like, you know what? Life has changed. I no longer want to do this. You can just let it go. And people. One thing I've realized is that people let go too. They're like, okay, people are okay. So now we have boundaries, right? And boundaries are can be happy fences. So what I mean by that is a lot of times people talk about boundaries, they go, you touch my boundary, and it becomes like a defense of keeping things out, because perhaps you have been burned before. You've taken too much on, and someone starts to, you put more and more on your plate, and you're like, no, I'm going to establish boundaries. And boundaries are fine, but you also want to make boundaries in a way where they're a path for people to walk, because they know that that's where they can go, and where they're not to go. It doesn't have to be, in essence, it could be like the border of Canada versus the border of Mexico. You know what I mean? Like how those are just two different experiences. And you also want to look at, where is it that you've been saying yes when your first instinct is really to say no, and take responsibility for, like, I said yes, way too many times. So that's another. And transforming your relationship to what support is. So this was a big deal for me. Because I lived in New York. I didn't have pets. I had one plant that was like hanging on to dear life. Like I didn't take care of anything in that way. I took care of my friends and family, but like something I had to be committed to every day. That it was just me. And so the idea that now I would need support did not feel good. I did not. I thought I could, do it alone. And it wasn't until my aunt said, Lydia, you're gonna need support. You're gonna need support. And I really learned a lot about what support is through her. My aunt is a person who, she's my father's best friend, really. And, she's had like, I think 5 or 6 children. I think I have like 5 or 6 cousins. First of all, it's a ginormous family, so I can't even count. But at any rate, she's always had a cook. She's always had cleaning help. She always had some people doing things for her. And so she's raised this big family. She also had a few businesses, as well as her husband having businesses. And I just remember thinking, she's never been without support. And support to her was really collaborative, in the sense that she took pride in being able to support people. She takes pride in being able to pay people wages and all that, because these are not just employees. They're actually, they're like family to her. They are family. And so instead of thinking of support as like, oh, this is where I need help. Like, that's what I thought, like, oh, I haven't got any help. So I gotta reach out to someone else for support. And it's like, no, it's an opportunity actually for collaborative energy. So how I look at it is, and I'm not going to take credit for this because I don't know like what modality this move comes from. But I remember when I was about to reach out for support for something, and I didn't feel comfortable with it. All of a sudden, I started doing this, which is like, having my palm raised and bringing that energy into myself, and then bringing it back out like that. That's what support could be. It could be a way for people to contribute to you, and by them contributing to you, they actually get something from that. So, and then the final thing is to now develop your permission to desire, because of, where we first started, which is I got to, I have to, as someone told me I should, and all those things. A lot of what our desires are gets buried in all of that. And now, once you've released some of the weight of the commitments and the task and places where you've been either not taking personal responsibility, where you've been resentful, now you have an opportunity to really like look and desire. And it's funny because, so it's also an idea of like looking at what have you been denying yourself. So when people say, when they're working with me, they go, Lidia, I don't know what I want. And I go, bullshit. We all know what we want. However, you have forgotten what you've wanted, you're disconnected from it, but you know what it is. And it's just maybe something that you just denied yourself because of obligations that you've taken on. But so it's the reason why when I work with people, I never start off with what they want. All right, okay, I know you want something. You're here, you want something. But we're not going to create a big 5-point plan about what you want, because what you want very much well could be rooted in limiting beliefs. And once you start to examine that, you're like, you know what I really want is this. So that's why I say that, the final step is to really like get in touch with desires, because now what you're doing is giving yourself permission to pleasure, giving yourself permission to desire, because it's not something that we are socialized to do. So what is your path forward now? So number one, embrace your burnout, right? Burnout is your opportunity to realign your life with your desires, with lost passions, with just what is that you really want. It's an opportunity for you to do a deep dive. And it's an opportunity for you to look at how you got here. It's like, how did I get here? It did not happen overnight. No one made you do the things that you're doing. Somehow you've taken it on. And once you start to examine that and really look at that for yourself, you also see how this is impacting other areas of your life, because it is. If you think that your burnout at your job is not affecting other areas of your life, you're kidding yourself. It really is an opportunity for you to look. So other thing, don't settle for coping. It's a cheap way out of burnout. Whatever you don't heal, you will repeat in however way it is. And a lot of my work is spiritually based. And I go, God has a real sense, like a really kind of messed up sense of humor. It's like, how is this guy I'm dating just like the boss I couldn't stand? Like, what? So don't settle for coping. And finally, pleasure is your path forward. It really is the practice of pursuing sustainable pleasure. And it is a practice. You don't all of a sudden, like, it doesn't happen overnight. It certainly didn't happen for me overnight. It's really an opportunity for you to use your burnout as your own personal life coach. Like, what does ask? What can my burnout teach me? And it's dying to teach you something. So here's my gift to you. So I created this really cool, unique pleasure formula to really make pleasure real in your life. I originally wanted to cover it on this, but I wanted to give an opportunity to really talk to people, to answer any questions. So it's there as a guide to you, and it's all, there's some woo-woo in there, but not that much. And at the end of it, you should be able to have a plan now for the thing that you've been like denying yourself. And I would love to hear what it is that you take on. Please do something outrageous, crazy, whatever that means to you. And, live your life, enjoy it, because it really isn't promised. If we've learned anything in the last year, 3 months, is that nothing is promised. And it's really up to you it is your job. I believe as a human being, your sole job is to have the best life you can, and to make the most positive impact that you can with the gifts that you have. So at this time, I would love to hear if there's any way that I can support you, if you have any questions, comments. Yeah, buts. Yeah, Lydia, we're talking about my life sucks. Give it